So the first question, let's go through that and see if we can kind of break that down a little bit. It says Erie's investment in TQM will at a minimum increase demand for its products 10.57%. We were just looking at that, right? In this and in all future rounds. Looking at the round 5 Courier for Erie, last year's sales were 131 million, etc. Assuming similar sales next year, the 10.5% increase in demand will provide 13,862,133. Taking the, I'm just taking the 10.5% times the 131 million, right? To get how much of an increase that might be responsible for. With the overall contribution margin of 51.5%, that's a sweet contribution margin, by the way. After variable costs, this revenue will add, so I took the 13.862 and I took the 51.5%. That gives me my gross profit, right? And that's what that is the 7.138 million to gross profit. Okay. For simplicity, assume that the demand increase in margin will remain at last year's level, so the same 10.5, the percentages there that we're talking about. How long will it take to achieve payback on the total 19.5 million TQM investment that Erie has made? Okay, rounded to the nearest month. So I want you to convert it to months, right? So you're going to come up with an answer that might be 3.3 years. Okay, well, what would 3.3 years be? How would you convert that to months? Just take 3.3 times 12, right? Yeah. So you'd have 36.36 or 36.4, something like that, right? Okay, or 36, yeah, so it'd be 36 plus 4 months, so it'd be about 40 months in that case. Okay. Ignore other savings achieved through TQM and tax consequences benefits. So we're just doing kind of some simple math. We're looking at some simple payback. The thing this doesn't incorporate is the other savings that you'd get with your TQM, but it should give you an idea how powerful, that TQM could be. So, Josh, you're giving it a funky look. So I've done about 90% of the math for you on here. What I'm going to tell you is that this problem's really, really simple. Okay, it's really, really, really simple. You just got to pull out the right couple of numbers and do the very, very basic math, and you'll come up with the answer. So we'll look at it when we get done here. 2, in order to sell a product at a profit, the product must be priced higher than the total of what it costs you to build the unit. Duh, right? Plus period expenses and plus overhead. At the end of last year, product Adam was sold by Anders. Used the Courier's production analysis to find Adam's production costs. That's just their labor plus their materials. I'd call it variable cost, right? So variable cost, production cost, interchange there. Okay. Exclude possible inventory carrying costs. So we'll assume they didn't have any carryover inventory. Assume period expenses and overhead of 1/2 of their production costs. So you're going to calculate this, right? So if this is equal to 10, then their period expenses and overhead are equal to 5, right? Okay. What's the minimum price the product could have been sold for to cover the unit cost, period cost, and overhead? I'd have to sell it for $15 if I'm using my 10 and 5 example, right? Okay, so that one shouldn't be too difficult. One that's kind of similar. Assume Team Ferris issued or sold 100,000 shares of stock last year round. This just adds another little dimension to it. You got to do a little more calculating, right? The issue price would have been the market price of the stock at the beginning of the year. Okay, so if you sell some stock during the year, you're going to sell it at the price that it was at the beginning of the year. So you're going to have to either, one, there's 2 ways you can figure that out. One is you can look at the Courier for this round and subtract out the gain in the stock price, or 2, you can just go back to the end of the last year, right? You can go back to the end of year 3 and see what the stock price was at the end of year 3, because that's what it would have been at the start of year 4 then. Okay, to make that kind of simple. Had the issuance not affected interest or profit, what would the effect have been on, again, the EPS and the ROE? Okay, so we're selling stock, right? What happens when we sell stock? We generate money, which is cash, right? which is in what side of the balance sheet? Or what, there's three segments of the balance sheet. Which one does that fall into? The cash? Assets. And we also generate, there's another part of the balance sheet that gets affected when we sell stock. We increase the equity. Yeah. Okay. Well, the total unit demand, what will be the total unit demand in the performance segment next round? What will be the total production capacity? So this is the number, right? The total. So it's not first shift. Okay, it's the total production capacity for those two. That's kind of an old one, so similar to what we've done, just pick a different category. It's just a reminder that I want you guys looking at those. You should be looking at them every single round. You should be doing this math every single round for every product. So, okay, any questions about the assignment? Obviously, I'll be here if you guys want to stay and work on it.